October 25th, 1415. Dawn breaks over a muddy field near the castle of Agincourt in northern France. On one side, a massive, gleaming army of French knights, nobles, and men-at-arms stands ready, numbering as many as 30,000. They are confident, well-rested, and fighting on home soil. On the other, a small, exhausted English force of no more than 6,000 men. They are ravaged by disease, starving, and trapped deep in enemy territory. Their leader, a young King Henry V, faces a choice: surrender or fight against impossible odds. What happened next would go down in history as one of the greatest underdog victories of all time. This is the story of the Battle of To understand Agincourt, we have to go back to the 100 Years' War, a century-long struggle for control of the French throne. In 1415, King Henry V revived the English claim and launched an invasion of France. His campaign started well, with the successful siege of Harfleur. But it came at a terrible cost. His army was decimated by dysentery, a brutal disease they called the Bloody Flux. With winter approaching, Henry decided to march his sick and weary men north to the English-held port of Calais. It was a desperate gamble. The French, having gathered a colossal army, shadowed his every move, blocking his path and forcing him into a confrontation he desperately wanted to avoid. Finally, on that fateful October morning, the English found their escape route cut off. The battle was inevitable. The battlefield itself would become a crucial player. The site was a narrow stretch of freshly plowed farmland, hemmed in on both sides by dense woods. Recent heavy rains had turned the entire field into a deep, clinging sea of mud. For the French, this was a disaster waiting to happen. Their greatest strength was their massive force of heavily armored knights, men who fought on horseback or on foot in full plate armor weighing 50 to 60 pounds. In this thick mud, their mobility would be severely compromised. Henry, a brilliant and ruthless commander, saw this immediately. He chose his ground with care, positioning his men in a defensive line across the narrowest part of the field. His plan was simple but audacious. He would force the French to come to him. Henry's army consisted of about 1,000 men-at-arms and 5,000 archers, and it was these archers who held the key to victory. The English longbow was the super weapon of its day, made from a single stave of yew. It was over 6 feet long and had a devastating draw weight. In the hands of a skilled archer, he could fire 10 to 12 arrows a minute with a range of over 250 yards. These arrows could pierce chainmail and find the gaps in plate armor. Henry placed his archers on the flanks, angled forward in a V shape to protect them from cavalry charges. He ordered them to hammer thousands of sharpened, 6-foot wooden stakes into the ground in front of their positions, creating a deadly, makeshift fence. The stage was set. For hours, the two armies stood facing each other. The French, arrogant and certain of victory, were in no hurry. But Henry knew his starving men couldn't wait forever. In a bold move, he ordered his entire army to advance within extreme longbow range. They moved their defensive stakes with them, replanted them in the mud, and prepared to fire. Goaded into action, the first wave of French knights charged. It was Charles. They thundered across the field, only to be funneled into the narrow gap and slowed by the sucking mud. Then, the sky darkened. Thousands upon thousands of English arrows rained down on them. The sheer volume of fire was terrifying. Horses panicked, throwing their riders and trampling men in the mud. The charge broke, turning into a disorganized, struggling mass of steel and horseflesh. The second wave of French men-at-arms, fighting on foot, advanced, but they had to clamber over the bodies of their fallen comrades from the first wave, all while sinking into the mud up to their knees. Exhausted before they even reached the English lines, they were met by a fresh volley of arrows. Those who survived the arrow storm finally crashed into the English men. The fighting was brutal, hand-to-hand combat in a gruesome, muddy quagmire. Men were trampled, suffocated in the mud, or head down. But the lightly armored English archers, having used up their arrows, dropped their bows, grabbed hatchets, swords, and mallets, and joined the fray. They swarmed the exhausted, immobilized French knights, who were easy targets. The French attack faltered and then collapsed into a full-blown rout. Thousands were captured, including some of the highest-ranking nobles in France. But the battle wasn't over. At one point, a group of French peasants raided the lightly guarded English baggage train in the rear. Fearing a renewed attack from behind while still facing a potential third wave from the front, Henry made a controversial and brutal decision. He ordered the execution of the thousands of French prisoners, a shocking violation of the chivalric code. His men reluctantly carried out the order. The threat neutralized, the English secured their victory. By the end of the day, the French had suffered catastrophic losses, with estimates ranging from 6,000 to 10,000 dead. English casualties were astonishingly light, numbering only in the hundreds. The Battle of Agincourt was a stunning victory that sent shockwaves across Europe. It wasn't just a military triumph, it was a social one. A small army of commoner archers had annihilated the flower of French nobility. It proved that disciplined infantry and superior firepower could defeat the knightly cavalry that had dominated European battlefields for centuries. Agincourt cemented Henry V's legacy as a legendary warrior king and paved the way for the Treaty of Troyes, which briefly made him heir to the French throne. It remains a powerful story of how leadership, strategy, and innovative tactics can overcome even the most impossible odds.